So let's begin today discussing the motors a bit. This is for session 3 where we're going to be motorizing the crane. So first off, just like we usually do, wake up your brick. Go ahead and pair it with your WeDo software. When it's paired, we are all set. So the example program is fairly straightforward, but let's begin there. We have these blocks that look like the motor, and they can move either clockwise or counterclockwise. So for clockwise, we can see how our motor is reacting. I've got an axle with a half bushing hooked up to another axle and a little piece here so you can see the motion. If we're playing the program, you'll see that the motor will just keep moving. If this is what you use for your crane, obviously it will get to the second floor and keep pulling, so eventually the string may actually break the model. So they suggest adding something that lets it run for a certain amount of time. So this block with the hourglass will have the motor move for a given number of seconds. So if we practice here, we see that it moves for 1 second and stops. That may not be enough time to get to the next floor. Let's run it for 5 seconds. You can have your students experiment to see what number works well, but they can time it and add that in. We can also change the speed that the motor moves. So if we add the speed block, looks like a little speedometer, and decide to make it go 9, which is fast, it's definitely going to get there sooner. So they can either experiment with time or the speed of the motor to get the desired result. So most kids are going to want to do something like this, but that's only one direction. What we could do is constantly change the direction and run that program. So counterclockwise, stop it, clockwise, stop it. So that could be an up or a down motion. I think most kids are going to try to come up with something a little more clever. What we can do is actually have multiple program strings. So we could have a program string for up and a program string for down so that we don't have to change anything. We can just run one or the other. So clockwise could be up, counterclockwise could be down. So both programs can coexist, and you just press play on whichever one you want to run. There are comment blocks that let kids put some notes to themselves. So here we may want to put that is up, and here we might want to put that is down. So they're going to have some ability to comment their code and use this as a remote control. So they could press up or down, and that would make it arrive at each floor. One neat thing you can do is add some messaging on top of this. So the red blocks can play music, show a picture, or show text on the screen. So let's add that. So when we get to the end of our upward motion, we are presumably on the second floor. So we could have our screen report that out and say floor 2. At the end of our downward motion, we should be at floor 1. So we can have our program output that. So if we start on the ground floor and move up 1, when it makes it all the way to the top of the second floor, we get our readout. If we decide we need to head down, we start the other and make it to the first floor, and it tells us where we're at. So this is a good way of getting your students to start thinking about how not only can they show their code in the physical form, but they can also add some things here to make it more accessible to people who may not be able to see, may not know where they're at, so they're not familiar with the number of floors. if you're on a building with 1,000 floors, you're definitely going to need to get a little more information. So this messaging system can also include pictures. You'll notice that sometimes the kids will experiment with this. But let them be creative, see what might be neat. Maybe they want to add a background to it.